I have some very important information for you guys that you're gonna want to hear because it's urgent. Next week, so did I make myself clear? Did you get all that? Good. Now you guys will know how to survive next week's life-threatening virus that's going to kill 95% of the human population, right? Those instructions I just gave you might save your life. Oh man, I'm sure every single one of you is wondering what the fuck just happened right now. Well, welcome to the wonderful world of Bungie's communication tactics on how the game of Destiny works, where you get nothing out of these motherfuckers, not even a go fuck yourself to the YouTube auditor, man. Now, obviously, there's no killer virus coming. Although you guys do know how I feel about the human population, so it wouldn't be a bad thing if that did occur. But anyway, the lack of communication, the act of silence, is a pain in the fucking ass when dealing with Bungivision. And this has been a complaint from the day this game came out. And I want to make this clear before I go off on my rant. The communication problems that Bungivision has is not Deej or Cosmo's fault. Deej and Cosmo are community managers, or messengers if you will. They deliver us the messages that management wants them to deliver to us. They don't make decisions on what to tell us. They only make decisions on how they can portray management's communications to us. And that's the focus of their position as community managers. So if Bungivision wants to tell us that the price of the DLC is $40, they're the ones breaking the news. If Bungivision wants them to stay quiet on legal issues, flaws, exploits, secrets, or whatever the fuck it is, they keep their mouths shut. So in no way, shape, or form should anyone blame these two for not communicating, because that's not their fault. It's management's fault. Whoever is running the company or making these decisions is the one at fault here. And that's the biggest problem for Destiny under Bungivision's control. The lack of communication. The lack of someone at the company with a fucking spine to tell gamers the information they need to know about the games that guide them when necessary. The lack of a take-charge person who could put themselves in the player's position in regards to information and releases it is what's affecting this game right now. Because I will tell you, if there is someone at this company that already does that, they need to be fucking fired. Plain and simple. Bungivision has fucking awful communication with their players on issues that directly affect them in the game. And they've had communication issues from the very start of this game, and it continues to persist. So let's go by the most recent example. Luke the Ass Hat Smith, our favorite motherfucker over there. He had another interview, and smartly he didn't say anything fucking stupid this time around. But one of the things that he did mention was communicating to year one players who did not buy the Taken King. And anyone who did not buy that DLC, you guys already know how fucked up the game is for you right now. Events and playlists that you all had before, they're now locked out this time around. If you didn't buy the Dark Below or House of Wolves, you still have the ability to get to the highest rank in the game. You could get to level 32 in the Dark Below. It'll take you a while. You could get to level 34 in House of Wolves. It'll take you forever. And you got to do that even without access to the full content that the DLC offers. But with the Taken King and the change that the DLC brought in the 2.0 patch, everything for a non-DLC player became a moot point. Lost access to nightfalls, daily missions, vendors, higher light levels, weapons, you name it. And granted, there are certain things that you're just not going to get if you don't pay up your money. You're not going to get new content that other players have paid for. And I don't think any intelligent non-paying customer will argue that. I didn't pay for it, fine. I don't get access to it. I understand that. But losing access to things you already had, losing access to Nightfall, to vendors, to missions, Crucible events, these were things players had before. When the DLC released and year 2 players bought it, year 1 players were seriously left behind. I mean, significantly left behind, to the point that they shouldn't even be playing this fucking game. They had access to all these items from the first 2 DLCs, even if they didn't buy it. They had access to vendors, even if they didn't buy it. But this time around, they lost access to pretty much everything you can imagine. The game that they're left with now is basically a shell of a useless game. Sure, you can play the Crucible, you can run the Vault of Glass if you can actually find a party these days because the shit is no matchmaking. But ultimately, there's really nothing left to play in this game if you don't buy the Taken King DLC. Now that being said, I'm sure that the players who actually bought the Taken King, myself included, and played it, you understand why. They understand why. In playing the DLC, I understand why these decisions had to be made. Bungivision pretty much changed the entire economy of the game. They changed the entire structure of the game to make it feel like a $40 game. With all these missions and quests and shit like that, the new light levels on weapons, which was a stupid fucking idea that I can't stand to begin with. The idea was to make this feel like a brand new game. Personally, I don't see why non-DLC players couldn't get to level 40, whatever the fuck it is, or have access to basic weapons and advanced light levels, but Bungivision wants to show the differences between year 1 and year 2. Personally, it's bullshit, but I understand it. And I know that non-DLC players will say that's exactly their point. Why can't they have access to the basic shit and not just the paid content? They were already made to download patch 2.0. That changed the whole fucking game, right? Probably spent 4 hours downloading that shit, or 6 if you're watching porn. 10 if you lived in some fucked up third world country trying to steal internet from the store across the street from you. So anyway, everyone was pushed into this direction. Everyone is being forced into buying this DLC, because if you didn't buy it, you still had to download patch 2.0 and you were stuck with a game without full access to all the content. For that, you can blame the license agreement. Bungivision had everyone agree to this in order to play the game, and you had to agree to their terms in order to access Destiny. And in their terms of service is a few things that they mention. Number 1, changes can be made at any time. In other words, if Bungivision finish screwing you doggy style, they may want to stick it up your ass in reverse cowgirl or cowboy style. They reserve the right to make those changes. And number 2, and this was the big one, that if you do not assent to new content, some features may be lost. These are very 2 important pieces of info in that agreement, although I will say this, any fresh off the boat lawyer could make a case that their wording is ambiguous at best, and Bungivision knows that shit. Any schmuck of a lawyer could make a case against that license agreement, but Bungivision knows that very few people would actually challenge them on that, and in the court, they have a lot more money to throw at lawyers than anyone else could, so they'll make sure that the little guys can't win this motherfucker. Could someone spin that agreement into their favor if they really wanted to dissect the wording and go after Bungivision? Sure, they could. Could they win in court against $1 million attorneys? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They would stand no chance against Activision and all the money they could give a lawyer to have a case like that thrown out. That being said, the issues of the game still remains. Why does Bungivision have such a difficult time communicating this shit to gamers? Think about this for a second. So far, we've had 4 releases of content for the game. The original launch product, The Dark Below, House of Wolves, and now The Taken King. In each one, Bungivision had something they regret that they didn't tell their customers. In each one, they had to have a pseudo-apology for mistakes that they made when it comes to communicating issues with the content or access of the game. Just look at the track record. Vanilla Destiny was supposed to be an open world that allowed you to go anywhere you wanted. And they had marketing material showing missions that you were going to do. And in the end, those missions were cut. Of course, further evidenced by the lawsuit by the former employee that wanted to sue the motherfucker. But in any event, Bungivision's first order of business was a pseudo-apology without the word saying, I'm sorry for not giving people a better scope of the growing world that Destiny was going to be. The game was going to grow over time, but right now, it's a shell of a game with nothing to do. All of those missions that we saw in the previews, all the missions we saw in the marketing material, you know, like things we were going to go up to the Citadel and shit like that, that was going to be coming down the road. What the fuck? So why have they show that shit to me now, motherfucker? But anyway, they had to apologize for the Vanilla Destiny game not feeling like the open world it was supposed to be. Then The Dark Below came out, and shit that pissed people off was equipment getting left behind and exotics starting over from scratch when it came to the rank-up process. Again, Bungivision had to apologize for not respecting our time with the game and not communicating these things ahead of time. House of Wolves comes out and confirms that the Reef was disc lock content. Once again, pseudo-apology in that the Reef was changed since it was initially envisioned, but the geometry was on the disc already. And now we get to the Taken King, and Luke the asshat has to say that they did a piss-poor job communicating once again when it comes to features of the game and the license agreement. That's for 4 motherfuckers. 4 releases, 4 communication fuck-ups. Somebody at Bungie clearly doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, and the only place that this comes from is management. Some clueless asshole or assholes who think not telling people vital information is more effective than giving us the details. They think ignoring all this potential shit is a better strategy than just asking the fans and telling the fans up front, this is what the fucking game is going to have. This is why the company needs a communication manager. Shit, this needs to be one of the highest level people in the company at this point to make sure that their decisions are not overridden. You can't continue to keep rolling out content for people yet not tell them anything about it. This is an absurd way of doing business, and they're almost completely clueless on how to gauge the interest of their fan base. It's one thing to make people sign off on a user agreement. Fine, we get that. But anytime there is a change that relates to what your agreement is in place for, it's supposed to be communicated. I mean, shit, as useless as the US government is, oh man, they're fucking useless. They've passed laws against this very thing. They've passed legislation to protect consumers from companies changing agreements without any kind of notification. When you change a licensed content or intellectual property rights, that needs to be directly communicated. It can be communicated afterwards, it can be done after the fact, but your consumers need to know. They have to be informed one way or another, but in this case, they didn't. They have never outlined what part of the game is licensed versus owned. Never. That has never been distinguished at all by anyone at Bungivision. They have never laid out what the full terms of service are for content that we play and what the price of our purchase entitles us to. So when they change shit, which they certainly have a legal right to, then people also have the legal right to be pissed the fuck off that Bungie's not holding up their part of the service agreement that says when changes are made, they're supposed to be stated. Just stating things can be changed without notice has never, ever, ever held up in the court system. We can change something without notifying you. No, it doesn't work like that. You can change something without notifying people ahead of time. You don't have to tell them ahead of time, hey, look, we're going to make some changes. You don't have to do that. You can make your changes and then come back after the fact and say, hey, look, we had to make some changes. Here's the final agreement that we have to come to. Companies try to say this shit all the time. And in the end, every single case that has ever ended up in court has lost. Every company will lose anytime they try to change a service agreement without actually notifying the customer or consumer of what it is that they actually changed. You're supposed to disclose these things, and when you change the service agreements, you need to detail exactly what the changes are. Not to mention, you're supposed to detail what the terms of service are to begin with, which again, Bungie has never done in the first place. So by Luke Asshat saying that they need to communicate better, that's not just him saying that because they want to make it appear like they're listening. That's someone over at Bungivision's legal department realizing somewhere along the timeline, someone fucked up. I don't know who it is. I don't care who it is. But someone fucked up. They did not disclose the changes of services to people who actually play this game, and it's one thing to not allow access to new content, but to restrict older content without ever detailing what your license covers, that's where they fucked up. That's where they know they got in trouble with this one, and why now they're having to go out of their way and say, you know what, we do need to communicate ahead of time what the license agreement is. Matter of fact, you need to start doing that shit now, because for the people who paid $60 for the game but haven't paid $1 more, they're obviously pissed off that they lost access to content. Do they realize what the content was? No, because it was never laid out in the first place. It is not anywhere in their terms of service agreement what you have access to at all. All it says is agree to what we give you access to. That's it. But it never tells you what you actually have access to. And this is why they need a community manager. They need someone who knows what you're supposed to tell the customer and what legally they need to abide by. Instead, we get another apology. The prior apologies were for mistakes in the game that people already gave them $60 over, but now that $60 has been altered with no disclosure. That's fucked up. Not only is it borderline breach of contract because you're supposed to disclose these things, but now they're realizing, oh shit, we did not tell people ahead of time what your $60 license entails. And we did not tell people what your $60 license applies to and what you have access to. And now they're realizing it. Now they have to unfuck what they already fucked. And chances are, I will all but guarantee you within the next 60 days, or at least 60 days after the release of the Taken King, we're all going to have to sign another user agreement. I can all but guarantee you. The law states they have 60 days. So what do you think we're going to have? Within 60 days, we're going to have to sign another fucking end user license agreement because Bungivision doesn't have a communications manager. Bottom line, they fucked up again. And before people ask, no, I don't want the job because I don't want to take a pay cut. Fuck that shit. I know that shit don't pay much money, man. Anyways, for those of you who want to update your resumes, feel free to send that shit over to Bungie. Tell them, listen, I can be your communications manager because you guys are all fucked up and shit like that. But as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next video.